Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education for Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. And tonight we are joined by some very special students from Mrs. Adler's class and Mrs. Flood's class who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand while they enter.
Good evening. Thank you so much. We're excited to welcome you to Smith Clove Elementary School on behalf of Mrs. Markevich, our assistant principal, and the entire faculty here. And since we are entering our season of gratitude, please sit. As we're entering our season of gratitude, everyone's standing so formally. I love it. Standing ovation will be shortly. As we are celebrating and honoring our season of gratitude, we thought what better way than to share our gratitude with our children, some of whom are able to join us this evening from Mrs. Flood and Mrs. Adler's class. And we hope you enjoy Things I Am Thankful For by Hap Palmer under the direction of our wonderful music teacher, Ms. Garcia. Enjoy.
Okay, guys, you can look over here. You can look at everybody here.
Thank you. Next is a reading of the mission statement. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. I need an approval of the revised agenda.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And then I'm going to turn it over to our director, Mr. Joe Tripotto, with fire safety poster winners.
So I'll introduce Mr. Tripotto as he comes on up here, our Director of Safety and Security. He's going to be presenting our awards for, or he's going to be introducing our awards for our fire safety poster contest winners. The award is named after Mike Fitsula, and Joe will mention who he was, but he was a longtime employee in the district. Used to hold the same title as Mr. Tripotto. So with that, Mr. Tripotto, you ready? Okay, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kravitz. I am very happy to be here tonight. First of all, before I begin, I would like to say that it's extremely nice to see so many of our kids and their families here in the audience. I thank you for being here, and it will be my pleasure to announce the winners of the 2024 Michael J. Fitsula Jr. Fire Safety Poster Contest. Each year, the school district invites our local firefighters to come into the district and do a fire safety presentation. And at the same time, these firefighters judge the artwork of our students, and they select the winners of this contest. Michael J. Fitsula Jr. was a familiar face in the district some time ago, and he served as the Director of Health, Safety, and Security for 20 years. He lost his courageous battle with cancer back in 2009, but his contributions and impact to the district were vast and indelible, and we honor him with this contest and award. So this year's theme was smoke alarms, make them work for you. The theme highlights the importance of having working smoke detectors in your home to prevent fire-related injuries and fatalities. They are your first line of defense in a home fire. For the families who worked with the kids at home to create these posters, we want to thank you. Obviously, your time and interest goes a long way in making this contest a success. So with that, are we set, ready to go? Okay. So first up, from Sapphire Elementary, we have Miss Dolores Terlecki.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I would like to present our first award to one of our wonderful students, Andre Davis. Come on down. Congratulations. I didn't see, our next winner is Grace Gonzalez. I don't know if she came in. Is she here? Yay! Grace.
Congratulations. And next up, from Smith Clove Elementary, we have Dr. Christine Arlt and Miss Shana Markevich.
Good evening. It's our pleasure to present our certificates to Demi Davis, our first place winner for first grade. And congratulations to Esme Feigenboots, our first place winner for kindergarten.
Congratulations. And next up, from Central Valley Elementary, we have Mr. Mike Barone and Miss Marisol Jackson.
Good evening. We are so excited, great artwork. We are excited to award the certificates to the first place winner in second grade, Lucas Jasierkowski. Congratulations. And our third grader who placed first place, is Mila Fleet. Mila. And in fourth grade, the first place finish goes to Gervin Gerard. And in fifth grade, our first place winner is Valentina Reynoso.
Congratulations. And next up, from North Main Elementary, we have Mr. Roger Davis and Ms. Amanda Greenblatt.
Good evening, everyone. Our second place winner is Haziel Alvarado Vecinos. Winner is Elena Lahara. One for Mom? Absolutely. Thank you. Our fourth grade winner is Matilda Pilla. Our fifth grade winner is Reagan Fumagalli.
Congratulations. And lastly, from Pine Tree Elementary, we have Dr. Karen Morales and Mr. Tim Martin.
Good evening, everybody. We are the proud principal and assistant principal at Pine Tree Elementary, and we would like to congratulate all the students that took part in the poster contest. Our second grade first place winner, Ardith, come on up, Ardith Joy. Good job, kid. Proud of you. Ready to come up? Did you? In third grade, our first place winner, Elijah Hippolyte. One student I did not see for Pine Tree, so we'll get him tomorrow during the morning announcements. In fourth grade, our first place winner, Scarlett Shim. Come on up, Scarlett. And our first place winner in fifth grade from Pine Tree Elementary, Miss A Prayer Smith. Come on up. Once again, congratulations to all the students.
Okay, a big congratulations to all of our students, and thanks again to all of our families, the administrators, and the firefighters who make all of this possible. Thank you very much.
Let them go. She said it's a good one, but
Oh, I moved over. I moved over because the kid, I wanted to see
That's
the
what happened last week.
singing.
I had to present, like the science department at my job.
You're gonna go online and you're gonna watch it, like when I missed
I
it
presented,
at,
and I was like, are we adjourned?
Sapphire.
Can I get out of here?
No, so I had to watch it online, you're gonna watch this online?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I know. It's so good. This is the real perks of being on the board.
When I was a kid,
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure, yeah. Yep. Yeah. As much body as possible.
Were you able to park? Did you have trouble parking? I parked all the way in the back.
I do like that.
I was on a Zoom union meeting. Yeah.
I could use the walk after 2 hours and 15 minutes in the car.
Huh?
I could use the walk.
My wife said the canter.
Yeah.
Over 2 hours in the car.
Where are you?
I work in Scotland, New Jersey. It's by Princeton.
Yeah, that's far.
It's 90 miles. It's almost 90 miles. It's like 80.
Okay, I thought I had that commute when I worked.
Yeah, I text them every board meeting, and I'm like, why are we friends?
So when you got
And I try to be
No.
late next week.
Yeah. Every board meeting, I come in. I'm like, why?
Paying back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got applications.
It's 5
I
o'clock
ran
next
for
Wednesday,
a
too.
delegate from the retiree chapter. I didn't think I'd win, but so as I'm walking in the door, they called the meeting. Okay, one ends, one starts. We're good. Good.
Okay, we're going to continue after that presentation. Thank you. Next up is questions or comments from interested citizens.
National merit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm turning it over to Dr. Hasser for the National Merit Scholarship.
So that was an impressive group of students, and I think that the next group will also very much impress you. In October of 2023, 1.3 million U.S. students from over 21,000 high schools took the PSAT exam as juniors. And by taking the PSAT exam, that automatically enters them into the National Merit Scholarship Program for this school year as seniors. The way that the process works is they take that 1.3 million students and they narrow it down to the top 4%, which represents approximately 50,000 or so students from across the country. That 50,000 then has a smaller selection of about 34,000 students who are identified as commended students based upon their score on the PSAT exam. We were very fortunate this year in Monroe-Woodbury to have 3 students identified as commended students for the National Merit Scholarship Program. And I would like to recognize now Pierre Sars. Congratulations, Pierre. I don't think Pierre's here. Next up is Ronaldo Rodriguez Perez. And our final commended student is Zachary Rowan Delson. Not able to make it, but we'll make sure we get him his certificate as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hasser, and congratulations on those very impressive achievements for our students. Now up is update or questions or comments from interested citizens, and there is no update, and there are no questions or comments from interested citizens. So moving on to our update on the goals presentation by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Norman. And Dr. Hasser?
Oh, we're all moving?
All of them. That's why, yeah, you guys are all right.
A whole slide.
That's pretty funny. Controls.
Good evening, everyone. So, back in August, we met and we presented our goals to the board and the community. And at that time, those goals were accepted. These are the exact goals in the exact format. And tonight, we're going to give you an update on the progress of these goals. So we have a total of 6 goals, and each cabinet member was assigned one of these district goals. And as we go through the presentation, each cabinet member is going to give you an update on each of these goals. And at the end, I'll conclude with the Create Strategic Plan by September 1 goal, and we'll entertain any questions or comments that you may have. Slide.
Good evening. I had the first goal. I share it with Eric, actually, but this is on the elementary end, which is to increase student achievement. As far as the 3 bullet points that are on the slide in front of you, the first issue that we really wanted to tackle this year across the board was chronic absenteeism and making sure that we could lower the percentages across the district. And what we've done already is we've updated our entire K-12 attendance protocol, making sure that every building at the K-5 level was in sync, and then also establishing those protocols in paper and written format at the middle school and the high school. We've also begun working with our data with all of our elementary teachers, but for the purposes of this presentation, we've distributed and reviewed our state ed data with our 4th and 5th grade teachers. In addition to our STAR data, they've worked in small groups. They've been able to see how their students performed last year, and they are also able to review the current cohort of students within their classes. Additionally, we've begun our work to review our curriculum alignment, which with the overarching goal of creating K-12 curriculum alignment throughout the district in our core areas. So we have our ELA and math committees that have been assembled. They are soon beginning their meetings to review their curriculum and making sure that we're all aligned from a standard standpoint.
At the secondary level, we had similar action steps that Matt described. Matt and I both partnered together in terms of updating the K-12 attendance protocols. We also have dug into our various state assessments that are administered at the secondary level. That includes the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA and math exam, the grade 8 science exam, as well as all of the Regents exams administered at both the middle level and the high school level. On top of that, there's also benchmark data similar to what Matt had shared that we dig into on the ELA and the math side in terms of STAR data. In terms of the curriculum alignment, we have developed teams at both the middle level and the high school level where by department, ELA, math, science, social studies, they are auditing their curriculum to ensure that all of the curriculum and all of the various courses within their departments are aligned to the various state standards and are appropriately preparing kids for their respective state assessments that are administered at the end of their course. Beyond that, there were 2 additional action items that were at the secondary level. The first one was related to AP dual enrollment data. You may recall in previous years that there was a goal to start to gather data both on student achievement on AP exams as well as the number of actual credits that our kids were acquiring in dual enrollment courses. That data has been collected, and what we've done is there's been a field that's been created in PowerSchool, which is our student management system, which allows us to be able to have the data in PowerSchool and then start to aggregate that data and look into the various items that Dr. Norman spoke about at the last presentation in terms of how our kids are achieving on those exams, how many credits they're required, the populations of students that are accessing those opportunities within the high school, and we developed a data team to really dig into that data, and that's going to be ongoing work over the course of the school year. Another item, an action step, was to conduct a student interest survey. That survey was released out to students last week. They're still in the process of taking that survey. And finally, the last item was to examine the school counseling program and measure it up against the guidelines that come out from the state education department. One of the requirements of the state ed guidelines is to develop and create an advisory council, and then the advisory council is the tool and the group that conducts that review. So we developed an advisory council. That council is going to be meeting before the holidays to get the process going and continue on that review process.
Question?
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about the updated attendance protocols, like give an example or two?
Sure. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we were doing was identifying the same thresholds K-12 of when we were identifying students that had attendance issues, how those issues were communicated to parents, when the reports were being run, what the communication looked like, what the letters and documentation were of that. And the reason being is because, you may have a family with students that are in different schools getting different letters at different times if there were maybe siblings in the same household that might have, same attendance patterns. So one of the things that we did with the building administrators was to sit down and actually go through and develop a consistent process in terms of what reports we were running in PowerSchool for student attendance, what we identified as attendance habits that were concerning to us, how those attendance patterns were going to be communicated to parents, and then what the communication will look like, making sure that the letters were consistent and that the timeliness of that being sent home. It varies a little bit between the between the elementary and the secondary, because the secondary are on quarters and they're doing it incrementally over the quarters versus the elementary, which are doing it intermittently across the trimesters at the elementary level. But we wanted to make sure that we were all using the same terminology, you know, in terms of chronic absenteeism, that 10% threshold, and how that was being run and tracked within PowerSchool.
If you haven't included it already, can you share the protocols digitally?
Sure, yeah, yep, absolutely.
So you also have distributed and reviewed aggregated assessment data.
Yep.
What did that assessment data show or indicate?
Sure. I mean, right now, the staff are in the middle of going through like the item analysis, where they look at highlights of things that we're doing very well within the curriculum, and then identifying areas that we need to focus on. You know, one of the things, I was actually like digging into it earlier in the school year when I was preparing to send it out to the team, and you know, they're identifying things like 7th grade math performed very well in statistical variability on the math exam. The 8th grade ELA team is looking into how kids are tracing and evaluating arguments, because that was an area that was problematic. And so that's the type of work that is happening. At the secondary level, at the high school level, they do a very similar analysis on Regents exams, where they're, you know, in the process of reviewing that data. It's a little bit different in the in algebra and in living environment and biology, because those are brand new Regents exams that we're going to be administering this year that we don't have any historical data. So while they're looking at how our kids performed on the old Regents exam, they're also really digging into the samplers that the state ed department has put out, because they're going to be taking the exam for the first time in June of this year.
I have a question if we're asking for this slide.
Sure.
Can you tell who is on the program advisory council for the guidance? Is
Sure.
it certain staff?
Yep, so it's, there's administrators from the elementary, middle school, high school. We have counselors that include both the guidance counselors, social workers, and school psychologists. We're going to have a high school student on the committee. We're going to have 2 parents on the committee and a Board of Education member that's going to be on the committee.
Is that applicable for all of the teams that you mentioned?
The core curriculum alignment teams is administration and staff.
Okay, and what about the data team for the dual enrollment?
Same, that's administration and staff.
And how are the folks that are on this committee selected? What was the criteria?
So basically, we sit down before we develop you're talking about the advisory council? Mm-hmm. So before we had the full advisory council, we basically had just a program review team, which was basically administration and counselors. And we sat down as a group and we said, you know, with the guidance from state ed, and said, okay, how do we identify the individuals that are going to be selected on this? The parents, I reach out to the PTA and I say to them, you know, can you give me 1 or 2 parents who would be interested in participating in the committee, which they've done. The student, I sit down with the guidance team and the high school administration, and they make a recommendation about a student. So it's just reaching out to the various stakeholder groups to determine that.
Who's our representative?
I haven't heard anything about it yet.
The advisory council.
The advisory council?
Mrs.
Donahue. Ms. Donahue.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Susanna.
No problem. And what is the plan for this? You said right before the holidays you're going to meet for the first time, and
Yep.
then how often?
So there's not a set amount. Normally, they're supposed to meet twice a year, but that's only when you are just reviewing and updating. This is going to be like a thorough sort of unpacking of our program. So basically what the committee is going to be charged with is sitting down with the current guidance plan that the board approves every single year and unpacking that with the guidelines from state ed and thoroughly going through to make sure that we've met all of the requirements of state ed. And that digs into many different things in terms of annual meetings with students, the tracking of college and career readiness and student interest surveys, digging in to make sure that not only does the plan reflect what it's supposed to reflect, but our practices within the school district as well.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Cahill. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Management Services, and I'm going to talk about our safety and security goal number 2. And we've done a lot of work in this area, as some of you may know, in the last few years, and I consider this sort of a continuation of some of that work. And I'm estimating that we are approximately 10% complete in this goal. And the first objective or task has to do with communication. And that has to do with the coordination of communication, both internally and externally, regarding safety issues, plans, protocols, management procedures, all those sorts of things, summarizing safety-related communiques from governmental agencies through our Director of Safety and Security. We receive a lot of information from Orange Ulster BOCES, Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, New York State Ed Department, local law enforcement. So we want to have a focal point, a conduit for all that non-emergency communication, and we want to affirm who would be doing that. And we're already doing a lot of this, but we want to make this one of our action items, one of our objectives for this year's goal. The real meat of the goal, I think, is security protocols, objective or action item number 2. We want to review and affirm and articulate safety protocols and best practices. So we've done a lot of this work already. And what we want to do is drill down a little more, even a more granular level than we have so far. One of the things that happened recently this year that sort of brought this out a bit more, brought it to our attention, was the way folks thought about when there was an incident, a law enforcement action nearby, and we went into lockout, and there were people looked at lockout in different ways, different definitions. So what we want to do is sort of address issues like that and really affirm, review, and articulate what our protocols will be, have a more granular sort of definition. The other piece of this, I have on there firm day-to-day operational postures and actions. So what we mean by that is, although the buildings are different, where do we want safety officers positioned? Where should school resource officers be positioned? Should they be in the front of the school? It can be different based on the school itself, but there's I think some best practices, and we want to review those things and in a positive way affirm what those actions, those postures should be. The next piece is establishing written protocols. So based on that work, or reviewing and affirming and testing and examining our security protocols, write those down, have a high-level overview of those protocols in writing so we can have a record of that, people can refer to that, and we can use that into the future. And reinforce security protocols. What that really has to do is getting out there, meeting with the building emergency response teams, going to meetings, meeting with administrators, and essentially reinforcing what our view of these protocols is and are, and in a way sort of reinforcing that, and through regular interactions, communications, could be with various emails, attending meetings, faculty meetings, that sort of thing. So we want to establish what the protocols are, show and demonstrate to everybody what they are, and then the final piece would be ensure compliance. So we want to review if those protocols are in action, get some feedback both ways if people understand, make sure they understand what the expectations are. And I see that last bullet, last objective or action item as an ongoing task that we want to ensure compliance. We want to make sure everybody understands, that the doors should be locked at the buildings during school. And I mean, that's the most basic thing, but that we're all on the same page when it comes to the protocols.
So I just have some questions. I'm a numbers person, so I appreciate the 10%.
Yep.
But what percent of each of these items, and I know the last one's an ongoing,
right?
But it's hard for me to digest. Like, some things could be at 50%, 20%, and the overall's at 10%. And I actually go back to the Eric and Matt before. I like percentage complete because it helps us understand where things are.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, if security protocols are definitely important, where does that stand from a percentage completed perspective in that goal?
I would estimate, Michael, that I say 10%. We're largely just getting underway, in that we've achieved I'd say the planning objectives, some of the communication objectives. We've started to review the protocols. We had some, at a recent admin council, we reviewed some of those things. So I would say in terms of the protocols, we're maybe 15% done. But because it's 10% overall, we're really just getting underway. And the way I envision this, I had, in my own document, I had added dates. And I envision a lot of this sort of taking us the entire year or into the spring to really start to hammer down and hammer it out.
Do we use a project management software here to track milestones and success dates and?
I do not, no.
It's Excel probably, right?
Yes,
Or some
that's
other
right.
documentation. Okay, it's just when there's a 10% at the top, it's hard to know what work happened in some of the other ones. So I get what you're trying to accomplish.
I could certainly do that at the next update, provide some more granular completion
I mean, if
percentages.
I think it would be important because some of those goals are more important because when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So it's which ones really need the love and attention first. And then we can see if that's where the effort is going and percentage-wise it's moving.
Yeah, we can do that.
I like the dates piece of it. I know previously that was sometimes on there that it would be that hopefully by the end of December, these would be accomplished by the end of January. I think it helps, to Michael's point, that it gives us a little bit more of a definitive of what's gonna take place during that time frame. So that was helpful.
So I'll add, I do think that we can put targets on paper, but this is living and breathing. And since the past 2 months that we talked, so much in the realm of safety has happened. And if you recall that document that I shared with you that talked about the goal-setting process that we actually took the administrators through and I took the cabinet through, is nuanced. And I know that, Patrick, you live in the business world. Michael, so do you. You guys are numbers. I'm not comfortable with the metrics in terms of, I don't know what 15% necessarily means as it relates to these different areas. To me, safety is something that's constantly changing. It's a moving target, if you will. And each week we are identifying things that quite honestly we need to do to get better and better. And sometimes what's good this month looks different next month. So I do think we can put dates on there, but I do not want to deceive the board nor the public, because we can certainly reach these little milestones that we put on paper. But then there are things that I want the community and yourselves to be aware of. These things that we're finding, and I don't want to promote complacency amongst the cabinet or anyone if we feel that we are halfway there or 75% there, because to me, we should always be looking and improving, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so goal number 3 deals with fiscal responsibility and accountability. I'm declaring this as 5% complete. Michael, so we're
going backwards.
We're just getting underway on this one, largely because this is related to our 25-26 general fund budget. So we intend to establish a fiscally responsible budget, supporting short and long-term program and facilities needs and goals. I think, one of the things that we think about with developing a budget, we think about short, long-term, is that we want programs to be sustainable, and I think that's something that we keep in mind in our planning, our budgetary planning. The next objective, which is, fairly important and a big time-consuming thing, is our 23 capital program. And I call it a program because it's really multiple projects. It'll be dozens of projects. We're going to coordinate, plan, and carry out the 2023 multi-year capital program project to address facilities needs. So that will be an ongoing project over the next 5 years. The objective 3 there, focus on student needs. We want to ensure that what we're doing, how we're allocating our resources, our fiscal and our human resources, best supports the needs of our students. We want to keep that in the forefront of our mind. We generally do that, but again, we want to be a little more intentional this year in that. Related to that is the next bullet. or objective, which is maximizing our return on investment. And I know sometimes in education, folks don't love that phrase, but really what I'm talking about is effectiveness. So are the things that we're doing, are the way we're allocating our resources, the people, the programs, et cetera, is it the most effective it can be? Are we focusing on student needs, and are we doing things that are addressing those needs, and is it effective in the most effective way? And then the final bullet or objective or action item for the year would be considering other funding sources. And really what we're talking about there is grants. We have a general fund, an A fund, that's our operating fund. That's what the public votes on, but we also have a special aid fund. That's where we account for all our grants. We want to make sure that we're being intentional about how the general fund and the special aid fund fit together, work together, again, to maximize our effectiveness, keeping in mind our focus on student needs. As far as the success of this or the achievement, I would say we would pass our 25-26 general fund budget in May of 2025 and any additional propositions that may be on the ballot.
Can I
We
ask a
have to
question?
keep calling it the 2023 capital project. It sounds like, could we rename it the capital project 5-year plan?
23 through 28?
Maybe. I mean, it just seems like we're, behind, yeah.
Often you say that, like, our reserve is the 2017 capital reserve, because that's when we established it and authorized it. And
I just
so-
don't think that most people in the community would understand that the 2023 is not
Up
delayed or,
2023 through 2029, about that. That's how long it's going to take us.
just capital project
work on
would
it.
suffice.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
My question is on the receiving stakeholder input. How are you going about getting that information?
Well, as part of the budget development process, we typically would have meetings, and what we had talked about is sort of intensifying that. So meeting with principals, directors, budget builders, if you will, all the folks that are involved with developing the budget to receive that input about what is effective, what are the needs of students. Personally, I'm not out there the way others are. I have a different role, right, in the school district, so I need that output. And so Dr. Norman earlier on in the talking about goals mentioned this concept of trooping the line, and we're reading a book about leadership, but what the premise is getting out there a little more, and that was personally what I intended to do related to this goal, to receive that feedback, so we know we're doing the right things and focusing on students.
Is there any parental feedback that's going to be part of that, or is it strictly in-house with administrators, faculty?
What I envisioned would be the parental feedback could flow through our principals, our APs, and our directors, sort of up the organization. But that's certainly something that, we could consider, and I think is probably important.
I mean, it could be part of the building leadership committee conversations,
I
right?
think it's
That would
important.
include parents and students and
Yep.
administrators and staff.
Good idea, good idea. Really
If it's advertised within each building, I know we're getting newsletters now from the buildings that perhaps there's something in there that the parents can either BLC, PTA, through the newsletter, advertise to pass some information along and then have it come up towards you. Because
Sure.
I think it's important feedback to get from the parents as well.
Yep, good idea. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to speak to the human resources goals of recruitment and retention. In terms of recruitment, our efforts thus far have primarily been focused on our classified or civil service positions, mostly because that's the area where we see the most turnover. To fill these positions, we've focused our efforts on recruiting individuals who live within our community. We figure who takes better care of our students than our own community members. To this end, we've created flyers. We've distributed them at open houses. Thanks to our communications department, we've created many social media postings. We've committed ourselves to responding to each applicant within 48 hours. We've also conducted building level outreach. And what I mean by that is we've asked principals to reach out themselves to their own families because we find that people are much more likely to want to work in a building where their children go to school. Additionally, we have updated our substitute link. That has, on our website, it's much more prominent and easier for people to see. We're getting great success in terms of recruiting more substitutes. You'll see there are 32 more substitutes on this agenda alone. The next thing is another action step involved ongoing training. And in terms of ongoing training in this area, what we have done is we've implemented a new hybrid model for the New York State mandated training. And in addition to that, that was at the start of the school year. In addition to that, we've conducted training for all administrators on district hiring practices, and the goal of that was to make sure that we are being consistent throughout the district. In terms of retention, we are focusing on two main categories, support and morale. We've planned and will soon be implementing a new mentoring program for our administrators. And for our teachers, thanks to Casey Capon and Michelle Pereira, we have included surveys that are planned to go out to our participants in our teacher mentoring program. What that is meant to do is to get feedback from those individuals who are receiving the mentoring so that we can make any changes necessary within the program and make sure that our new teachers are getting exactly what they need. We've also, our administrators have a large part in making sure we're taking care of our new teachers as well, or our new staff members, I should say. They've been conducting check-in meetings with new employees on a regular basis. Also, thanks to Tara Mapes in the HR office, we've started a new employee recognition program. We've already recognized 2 of our employees. I hope you've seen the announcements on social media. If you have an opportunity and you all invited to come when we present those awards, there's a lot of emotion. We're very, very proud of the people in our in our district. And again, it's nice to be able to recognize them. We've been doing that on a bi-weekly basis. And the last one we did, it was Julie Morganti at Central Valley Elementary School. She's been teaching for 29 years. And it was very rewarding to do that with her students there. Very cool feeling. The next thing that we've done, we were working on creating administrative pathways for our current employees, essentially growing our own administrators. And to that end, what we've done is we've worked with the Mid-Hudson School Study Council to establish an administrative certification cohort program that we'll be hosting here. That's going to be done through SUNY New Paltz. We've already created and had an interest meeting. We invited 26 teachers who were selected to participate in that program. I do not have the final numbers of how many have committed to the program yet. They still have an opportunity to do that. In addition to the SUNY New Paltz program, we also have a partnership with Manhattanville. And with Manhattanville, we've recently had a meeting and we've shared information to all of our MWTA members regarding that program. So we're hoping that we have a lot of people pursuing administration because, as I had mentioned at another time, our benches are empty. So we are looking to grow our own. Any questions?
What was the criteria for the selection of the 26?
So the criteria was when you have teachers in your building, and teachers have had some experience, there are people with leadership skills that are recognized either what they do in their classroom, how they lead other people around, their presence in a building. There were not objective criteria, it was more subjective. We reached out to our administrators and we asked, which individuals do you feel in your building or department have potential leadership abilities? And we had a list of 26 people. Excellent choices, by the way, and one of the things I mentioned when we talked about retention is I mentioned morale. And as a teacher, to hear that your district believes in you and sees leadership abilities in you, whether you're interested in the program or not, it goes a long way. That is what we were hoping would happen, and that is exactly what would happen. We are telling our people that we believe in them, we see potential in them, And there are quite a few people who are going to pursue that opportunity. For those who are not selected, that's why we also have that partnership with Manhattanville, so that they too, even if they weren't chosen for that other program, can pursue that administrative certification.
Good evening, board members. Before I jump into my update, I do want to thank a big shout out to my colleagues, Dr. Norman, for his guidance and support as a superintendent, administrative team, and most importantly, the technology team behind the scene. Some of the items that you see here, even though it's like a one bullet, there is a whole team behind it that works. And there are many studies have shown that when we have a strong, resilient cybersecurity framework in our district, it enhances the student outcomes. So talk about the first two bullets, disaster recovery plan and incident response plan. This allows us to be more resilient. That is the gist of that. And ultimately, when we have a good disaster recovery plan in front of us, allows us to practice and then really see what the next steps are. It allows us to be in front of whatever the disaster would be, flooding, pandemic, and as recently as wildfire. Until 2 weeks before, we have not considered adding a wildfire here into this thought process of DR plan. But now we will be adding to say, what does this mean to us? And the purpose of creating this disaster recovery or incident response plan is to get a little bit ahead of that. What would be the response looks like in terms of technology infrastructure? The infrastructure of technology in our district has two steps. One is in the cloud, one is on the site within our district. What happens if the students or staff cannot get into our district? What happens if we had to pivot online or any other disaster or incident? So this is a plan that allows us to be thinking ahead of that, allowing the technology team members to be a part of the conversation and really look at some of the vulnerability. The plan is always good until it's not. So it's always a moving target for us. This is our third iteration. We've been doing this work for almost 4 or 5 years now. And every time we do this, we find something new, some area that we can improve upon. So even though it could be vulnerable, it allows us to be a little bit stronger every time we do this exercise again and again. The goal is to do every 2 years this plan. As I mentioned earlier, wildfire was not even in a conversation, but now we are thinking from what happens if that occurs here. 2 years before, first time when we did in 2019, this actually was done pre-pandemic, and then we had the other issue with the pandemic. So that's the goal. We are about 25% done for the first two bullets. It goes simultaneously. Michael, or Mr. Ciarella, to your point, we use a basic Google Sheet tracker that allows us to be mindful of the dates and timeline. Network penetration test. This is basically a test that we hire a third-party company, almost like a hacker group, and they test our internal and external vulnerabilities. So they will test the resources that we hosted outside in the cloud. They use certain tools that would be same tools that the bad actors would be using it. Again, the purpose is to learn from that. What are the vulnerabilities that they will find, and what can we do to mitigate that? That would be the ideal stage. Or if we acknowledge the risk, what would be the cost or the mitigation from in terms of cyber insurance, other mitigation resources? So that's really the purpose of doing this exercise. This is our second time doing it in last 5 years. It's about 35% complete. We are a little bit ahead, and there are some interesting findings. For example, they take the student account and they will try to penetrate into different resources. They would take one of the administrator account and they will try to poke into what resources they can get in as if it's a bad actor. It helps us, their findings, to see from the external perspective, to see what it means to us and how can we patch those things.
So you said it's 35% done, so...
We're a little bit ahead of that.
It's still in flight?
Yes, it's actually, it will be ending in the second week of December.
Okay.
It started in October, and they have their own method to the madness. They would test it, certain resources, certain time, and even though they tell us they're doing it, they don't tell us, and the purpose is to test the resiliency.
Yes.
That's really the purpose, and learn from what their findings are. We are anticipating the report back, I would say January, February, and I'll talk briefly about as part of the next steps.
Thank
Data privacy training, this is an ongoing exercise. We've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. This is a big shout out to our administrators, teachers, support staff, even though this can be an annoying exercise to get that pesky email, including the students. We learned from last 2 years of data, and we adjusted the frequency of this campaign. We used to do once a month, which is 10 months for the school year. We adjusted it to 6 times a year, and looking at the data, that because the data was, what was the data telling us? What the people will get more complacent if we do too frequently. So it's just adjusting the frequency of that, and then we'll see what the data shows at the end of this year. Our first campaign will be ending this Friday, and I'll share some of the interesting data that we'll find in my boardgram. Security awareness, actually I flipped the conversation. Security awareness was what I was talking about. Data privacy training is the part of the beginning of the school year training that we allow usually 4 to 6 weeks. In a way, this is a mandatory training from New York State Education Department. And we have it now down packed in terms of, we pick one module every year. It's a three module training. And it generally, what it does, it creates the awareness to the end user. What is the good email look like? What is the phishing email look like? What are the password requirements? The purpose is to doing this awareness in terms of educating the end user. We do this to our student teachers. We do to our support staff. We do to our board members as well. So thank you for your support as well. And that's an ongoing exercise.
Do we have a choice?
I was going to say.
It's necessary.
It's mitigation of risk.
All of our staff has been completed.
And you might hear sometimes, or Dr. Norman sometimes, you're like, well, my account is disabled. And we have a good process in place. And it's not that we like to do that part, but I think it's important for all of us to be aware of what are the risk factors involved in that. First couple of years were tricky. Big shout out to our support staff and teachers. Like they take it seriously. Even every year, meeting with the union leadership earlier this year, we come up with an even better process for next year. So it's just allowing us to revise the process every year. And the goal is to not disable any account at the end of the deadline. Like, can we have everybody take care of that? But again, it's a cumbersome training, which we all appreciate of everybody doing it. Based on all these first 4 or 5 bullets finding, our next steps are a cybersecurity risk assessment. We completed hiring the firm who will be looking at all this the Center for Internet Security Controls. We have 18 controls in the technology, and we have 106 sub-controls. The goal is to look at the first 6 controls, which is about 45 sub-controls, starting in January. And then let them come in, take a look at what we have, and when they come in, they don't just ask, they actually ask the proof of what are we doing. They ask the data. If we're saying we are doing a data privacy training, well, show us what is the percentage of the rate that the people have completed. And at the end of their recommendation, our goal is to build the budget around that and then implement their recommendation following year, but continue the same exercise for next 3 years. So that will help us to be improving the cybersecurity, ultimately building the resilient cybersecurity framework. That is the end result for us.
I have 2 questions. So just going back to the network penetration test. So when you talked about the internal, external components, it was centered around just what we are doing internally and externally. What pen testing are we doing for vendors that are getting information about our students in our school district, et cetera, et cetera? What are the standards in terms of the protocols?
That's a great question. So we use a compliance tool called Symmetric, and we track their SOC compliance. There is a report actually called SOC 2 compliance. So we receive that report, like for example, PowerSchool. That's one of the biggest data systems that we use for our student management system. So we get their SOC 2 compliance report, and then we log into our compliance tool. The vendors, not many vendors allowed to do the pen test against their network because that's just not feasible, but they do provide us the report of their system that they have in place as a customer.
And the pen testing results that they provide us, does it have to be provided by an independent company, or are we allowing them to do their own pen test and give us the report that says everything's fine because it's in their best interest to say that?
Another good question. So SOC 2 report is actually generally performed by third party through the vendors. It does not spell out every detail because it's confidential information, but it does, when the SOC 2 certified report comes, it's verified by the third-party vendor. It's almost like having the external auditor audit the system.
Don't tell the other lawyers I'm a bit of a techie, being married to one, you pick up a few things. My second question is, with regard to the security awareness training and the campaign, you specifically mentioned phishing. Seeing that we're trending more to a non-manual process environment, are we going to focus on other aspects of that instead of just phishing? I know it encompasses a lot, but it's not exclusive to just phishing when you're in the cyber world.
We have thought about it, but then we get into the user privacy piece, and it's a very fine line to go. There are phishing, like not just the phishing, and text messages now the highest form as well. But generally speaking, 76% of the bad information come through the phishing campaign. So we're focusing on that, not necessarily for the texting purpose. We do have a tool, but I don't think we'll be doing it from data privacy perspective.
Thank you.
I do think that the 3 courses that are selected need to make sure that those are staying up because there's a lot of new vulnerabilities that have come out. Trying to spoof Dr. Norman, his voice, AI, directing people to do certain things that he's not on the other side doing. And that needs to be educated. I'm on the banking side, and we have a ton of training, and it constantly evolves. And I think waiting for state ed to catch up is very risky for us to do. And I know we have certain resources, but it's a constantly evolving. And I'm also concerned that only one's required. I know I won't be popular for saying this, but only one's required annually. We have 12 that we have required, and then there are more involved in that. And we have just as much PII as you guys do, if someone got in the system. So I think it's kind of keeping up with the evolution, because when we rely on government to say, well, now you're here, it's already well past when we should have been teaching it and learning it. So just concerned.
Knowledge.
My question goes back to Dr. Norman's letter earlier this week that should we have had to pivot based on the fires that Orange County is experiencing, would we have been ready to have a virtual remote day?
From technology perspective, yes, but there's a lot goes behind the scene, not just the technology.
Okay. So it could have just been a day off because I know that's in the works also for possibility for snow days, that it might not be a snow day, it might be an actual remote learning day, correct? Okay.
I think the difference with the fires, too, is it could damage infrastructure that would allow for connection. So I think it's a great exercise, like you said, in the incident response and disaster recovery plan to how would we be able to address that. Yes, satellites can help with some things, but not, most of it's still landline connection, whether it's cable or modems and all the other components. The cell towers could be affected.
I think the same will be true with inclement weather because phone poles or telephone poles or whatever go down, and you may have inequities where certain children don't have access to internet connection and things of that nature. So I think, yes, satellites help, but they're not, again, the end-all be-all where they're going to solve every problem because there are outages.
We have powwow.
Correct. So
But versus a snowstorm, a fire can devastate infrastructure that controls and feeds that much more readily than a snowstorm would.
And I think that that's one of the things that Bargoff was kind of alluding to in terms of like accessibility, where if it's a spontaneous day and we were to go to remote, to even guarantee that all of the kids have their devices at home in order to be able to access that could be problematic versus a snowstorm where you may have the forecast in place. You may know that we're out of snow days, and we can say to kids, the forecast is not looking great. Make sure you bring your devices home, and we have to prepare for this.
Yes.
But if it's spontaneous, you may have some of those limitations in place.
So the access to the remote learning is purely through the school device? You can just log in with dual authentication? You can.
We remind our students to make sure your Chromebook is charged up and software is updated and, right?
Yeah, we need protocols, you know, for that as well. And that can be as simple as having them take them home, back and forth. And working other issues. Oftentimes when there's snow, as you know, power outages, I mean, you mentioned equity or whatever, that's always something we have to think about, put protocols in place. So our final goal is our creating a strategic plan by next September. So this was, I guess, kind of the lighter one, at least from my perspective. I'm not just saying that because I'm heading it up, but we're basically laying the groundwork to implement the plan for next year. And as I mentioned to you in August, the intent was to look at the work that was done in 18-19, which I think was excellent. You actually created a strategic plan. Now, some of the goals weren't met, but that's okay. We know that nobody could have predicted COVID. But we took that document, and this committee is working off of that. So since August, we actually formed a committee, and we intentionally targeted the institutional knowledge. We went after those people who served on the previous strategic planning committee, and those that are no longer here, we replaced them with other talent. We've had 2 meetings to date, and we have our next meeting November 19th. Up to this point, we have looked at our mission and vision statements. We've formed in subcommittees. We've had great dialogue. This past meeting, we looked at the goals from 18-19, and we are deciding what do we want to add, keep, or tweak. And we hope to come away from this next meeting with defined focused areas. And I think that we will easily meet this goal by the end of the year. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say we're probably at 40% complete. But the real work would obviously start next year when we actually implement it. So this concludes our update on our goals, but this is not inclusive of all the work that the cabinet, our administrators at large have put in. When we talk about goals, we have, first of all, I just want to acknowledge that the mere fact that we're sitting here talking about an update on goals is great progress from this time last year. To have goals in place and to actually talk about goals every step of the way is progress. The next milestone or checkpoint, if you will be in January, where we have the mid-year review. I would like for us to come back to this forum and continue to update you on this. It can be in 2, 3-month increments, whatever makes sense. But I do think that's important so that when we do reach the end of the year, there is no surprises, and each step of the way we want to receive guidance. We want feedback. So our goals that we went through tonight, the cabinet have separate goals as well. And based on the cabinet goals, our building level administrators and department leaders have goals. That was part of that document I shared with you, and those goals are nested together. And what we talked about is not all inclusive of all the great work that's going on. We know that we're doing a lot of work in communication, for example. Professional development are things that we're constantly looking at. So this is not the end-all, be-all, but this is the more global view, just to give you and the public an understanding of what we said we're going to do and how we're making progress. And we're welcome to hedge or shift and do what needs to be done. So, subject to your questions.
Thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from October 30th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And then the next item is an approval of the NISBA renumbering of our policy manual. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And the next item is personnel. Ms. Hawk.
Thank you. I'd like to request approval for the items listed under personnel this evening, 10-1 through 10-25.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next up for business and financial, Mr. Cahill.
Thank you. I respectfully request approval of business and financial items 11.1 through 11.8.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education. Recommendations. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And our report by student representative of the Board of Education, Mr. Escobar.
Hey guys, hope you're doing good. Today I have my first major report on the activities I've been conducting and the information I've gathered from students. These are my findings from meetings with the middle school and high school students about clubs and activities. These are purely based on student feedback, and I understand if I may be missing context or reasoning behind certain decisions. And just feel free to jump in at any time with some questions. First, I spoke with 10 randomly selected middle school students about their experience with clubs and activities. All were involved in some form of after-school program, whether it was an extracurricular or a sport. And I had a list of questions ready, and we got through many of them. But the students naturally began sharing their own experiences and opinions, and we entered into like a really great conversation about their experiences. One topic that came up was how clubs are promoted and the information is distributed. Students mentioned that details are typically shared via Google Classroom or announced over the PA system, but some have trouble just accessing this information. Whether it be not having the class codes or not being able to hear the announcements over the PA. A suggestion was made by one of the students to have more physical announcements like posters around the school, particularly in cafeterias, that display the classroom codes and important information so that students have, they're readily accessible to them. And if that's another suggestion was to have a digital bulletin and like a TV monitor in one of these cafeterias that has all the information posted on there. That way teachers can instantly update it with their information and they don't have to print out new posters every single time. When asked about if the amount of time and the range of activities offered at the school was sufficient, the students answered positively, and they felt that both of those things were good. And the students who needed to gather equipment or access information before their clubs raised some concerns about not having enough time to make it to advisory. They were having troubles retrieving their items on time or just making it to the lockers or their locker rooms. And that just led to items getting lost and just rushing in general. And I understand, and I've spoken with some people about it, that advisory time has been adjusted at the middle school recently, and it's been a very careful and calculated decision. So if there's just a way that these students could contact people at the school to receive a brief extension through an approval process, I think that would mitigate some of the issues they're having getting their items and making it to their advisories on time. So that was at the middle school level, and at the high school level, I interviewed students outside of the cafeteria area, collecting data through an anonymous Google form. we received 61 responses, 72% of students reporting they were involved in at least one club or sport. When asked why they weren't involved, the most common reason was simply just a lack of interest. Other factors like prioritizing grades and not having enough time were mentioned, but cited less frequently as reasons. As a part of that lack of interest component, many students said that they just wish they had more of their friends involved, or they just did not learn about the clubs on time to sign up to them. And the majority of students were satisfied with the resources available. There was just like some students being like, oh, nicer uniform would be nice, but they were all in general very happy with the resources they had for their activities. When asked about the types of clubs they would like to see, students offered a range of creative ideas. There were common threads throughout them, including a desire for roundtable discussion type clubs, like almost a book club, but focused on other topics of interest like sports, music. And now, based on all of this feedback, my suggestion would be to increase in-person promotion of clubs within the school. Announcements on Google Classroom and at open house and during homeroom are all very effective, but some students aren't checking these announcements or not going to open house. So to tap into that new base of students and get them involved, we can have students who are part of clubs promote outside of the cafeteria areas. They reach a very wide audience, and that encourages peer-to-peer engagement. And I understand that starting a new club and finding an advisor can be challenging and require funding, but there is a clear interest among students in creating these group activities centered around sharing interests like a book club type group, and just starting up and taking initiative in general. This year alone, Josh Gorland, Tyler Landusky, and Jacob Ciriello, shout out, started up men's choir, which now has 40 members, and students like Zayed Kadir are independently starting community and affinity groups for students in the district. Colleges and universities, they value students who take initiative and lead these new projects, and it overall promotes student achievement. And if the school can foster that environment where students have the ability to form these groups that don't require intensive resources, that could provide just a framework boosting student involvement and growing the MW community. Before I finish, I'd just like to thank Ms. Dudgeon, Mr. Berger, Mr. McElroy, and Dr. Ciara. You guys are absolutely incredible. I'd like to thank the middle schoolers I interviewed, Ajani, Monica, Nayeli, Liam, Addison, Ruby, RJ, and Tiana. You guys were absolutely incredible. I don't know what they're feeding kids these days, but they were so articulate with their answers and mature. It was insane. I definitely didn't speak like that. And lastly, I'd like to thank some high schoolers who came out to help me conduct the surveys and give away lollipops. That helped incentivize students to take the survey. So thank you, Amani Fish, Emily Roy, and Justice Worthington. You guys are amazing. That is all I have for today. If there's any questions.
I have questions, but
Yes.
first, you did an amazing job.
Thank you.
So congratulations, because that was very thorough. My first question is, and I'm sure that you are, being that you're a senior, you're in the world of going to college open houses. I've been to quite a few in the last few months, and one of the big things that they advocate for as soon as you walk in the door are their club fairs. So do we do any type of a club fair at the high school level or at the middle school level?
Yes. At the open house that we have, there is a club fair there.
Okay.
And I think that, one of the things mentioned was that is a very effective tool for getting students interested, but I feel as though and talking with Michael, who's the previous student Board of Education rep, even when just conducting surveys like this and posting them on Classroom, you get a very specific set of students who are the people who are constantly checking the classroom and constantly listening to the announcements. And those students are already more likely to be involved in a club. and those students are also the people doing open house and going to open house. Some students are not going to those things or listening in, and if we could get more students interested in going to those activities, that would be incredible, like open house. But pairing that also with that direct engagement from other students inside of the high school, I think could boost involvement. But yeah, that was a great question.
And my follow-up to that is, I know you mentioned at one point in the presentation that some kids, they thought they missed the opportunity to join.
Mhm.
Is that for pretty much any club? I mean, I know athletics is probably, you know, you have to kind of try out and get on the team, but do the clubs have like a cutoff that if you don't join by a certain date, you're unable to join later in the year?
I cannot speak for every club. The ones that I'm involved in and the ones that I know about, they usually do have some sort of cutoff for joining because there is like a sign-up process, and the advisors need to allocate the resources they have for the set number of students. I'm sure there are clubs that allow students to join later in the year. The main thing, though, with that is students feel like the form initially comes out offering a sign up for this club, and it goes out for a little while, and we promote it for a bit. And then once the answers stop going out, we stop advertising it. So students likewise just feel like they cannot join the club anymore. So continual promotion of clubs, if the club wants more people, I think that's just a recommendation for them, is to keep advertising.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay, and next is reports by Board of Education committees. Ciriello for audit.
Audit, we have nothing to report at this time.
Ms. Donahue for policy.
Yeah, we met this past Tuesday, and as you can see, we just approved the NYSBA renumbering of our policies, and this will enable us to move forward with the auditing of our policy manual.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons is for OXPA.
So there was an OXPA delegate meeting on November 6th. There was a presentation by Lacey Trimble, who is the commissioner of the Orange County Department of Social Services and Mental Health. She talked about all of the resources, particularly opioid resources, that are available to school districts, mental health counseling, and drug and other rehabilitation programs, noting that the Orange County Department of Social Services and Mental Health is willing to come out to any school districts to do presentations, etc. They also talked about their pair-run sober facilities, and of which 5 of them are in Orange County, and then gave updates around the February 9th conference and the Lower Hudson Coalition meeting. So the next meeting is December 4th.
Thank you. Ms. McCleary for...
We have not met since our first meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is on the calendar for December 19th, but I do know that on December 11th, I believe we are having a presentation to the board and the public from the Palumbo group, correct?
We might change that, the dates on that a little bit, but we'll figure it out in the next couple of days.
And we would have the Palumbo Group and CPL, our architects and engineers, both there.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds for visitation.
Our next meeting is 20 November at 1600 at the high school. Be there or be square.
4 o'clock for the non-military.
Oh, sorry, 4 o'clock. My apologies.
Thank you. And reports by Board and Central Office, Mr. Kravitz.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Smith Clove, Dr. Arlt, Ms. Markevich, and team for hosting tonight. Also, a big shout out to our tech support for allowing this to be on the road. Thank you very much. Congrats to our fire safety poster winners and our National Merit Scholarship recipients. Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to present our goals, or at least our updates. I wasn't there physically, but I did purchase the online link to the Faculty and Friends recital, and if you haven't seen it, it was an incredible show. We have a lot of talent in this district, and the friends of the faculty who performed were great as well. And then lastly, our thoughts and prayers go out to our neighboring school district of Greenwood Lake as they're dealing with the recent wildfires. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here that if there's anything that we can do to help support them, we will. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Mr. Cahill?
Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to echo what Matt had said about Greenwood Lake. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank a couple of folks who made a donation tonight on the agenda, Burlington Stores for their donation to Central Valley Elementary School, and Abby Peterson for the donation of a piano to Central Valley Elementary School also. So CV did well tonight with 2 donations. And although we accepted the financial reports at the last meeting, I didn't really have an opportunity to thank and acknowledge some staff, so I'd just like to thank everyone in the business office for all their hard work this year in preparing for the audit. And I'd like to specifically thank and commend District Treasurer Michael Buffamonte for coordinating, taking the lead, and preparing for this year's audit under some difficult circumstances where we had a lot of staff turnover and changes. So with that, I hope everyone has a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Villas?
Thank you for Smith Clove, Dr. Alt, hosting an amazing students. We have some future singers and performers. That's pretty cool to see the kids every time we have an opportunity. Big shout out to fire safety poster winners and the National Merit Scholarship recommendation as well. Congratulations to girls high school varsity team moving on, Section 9 champion, and good luck to football team. We have an amazing diver, Molly Connolly, so congratulations and good luck for the state championship.
Dr. Hassler?
I agree with everybody. Thank you, Smith Clove. Congrats to everybody who was recognized tonight. Just a quick plug for high school drama, Three Musketeers this weekend. Please get out there and check that out. Hard to believe, but winter concerts start next week. Schedule's on the district calendar, so I encourage everybody. They're also a live stream to start to check the winter concert schedule. Agreed, thoughts and prayers to everybody about the fires, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Ms. Hogg?
Congratulations to our new hires. We do have someone in the audience. Alex Holterman, can you stand for us, please? Alex is a new computer technician who's... Welcome to the family, Alex.
Speech.
I too would like to wish our athletes competing in state competition good luck and break a leg to our drama club.
Thank you. Ms. Novak?
Yep. Echoing everything that was said so far, so big thanks to Smith Clove Elementary for hosting us. All the best. Good luck to our athletes performing, and I can't wait to see the Three Musketeers. So break a leg to the drama club, everyone involved in that production.
Ms. Donahue?
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting Smith Clove. Very appreciative, and thank you so much for that wonderful performance that your students provided for us. Congratulations to all the fire safety poster contest winners and the National Merit Scholarship recipients. Thank you to Dr. Norman and the Cabinet for their goals update presentation. Welcome to all the new hirees, and I'd also like to express my prayers and thoughts to everyone battling this awful fire in Greenwood Lake, and my deepest condolences to the family and friends of the young man who lost his life battling when the tree fell on him. And on that note, I'd also like to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons?
Mirroring the sentiments of my fellow board members, thoughts, prayers, sympathies go out with our colleagues and comrades in Greenwood Lake. Congratulations to all of the National Merit-Based Scholarship winners, the fire safety poster winners, and congratulations to the #1 seed varsity football team on their run for the championship, as well as all of the other student athletes. There's a very great achievement. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Berger for hosting the facilities infrastructure team last week or the week before at the middle school, and I look forward to the tour of the high school. So It's going to be a hard act to follow, Principal McElroy, but we're looking forward to it. And happy, healthy Thanksgiving to you and all of your families, however you choose to celebrate. Hopefully it is in a way that's very meaningful to you.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary?
Thank you tonight for hosting us, and thank you for the students. They're always the best part of the evening, so I appreciate that. No offense to Dr. Norman and the cabinet, but thank you very much for your presentation as well. And I'll just echo and add on as far as for the athletes, and I just know that it's always a great community feeling whenever you're able to go to these events. So for anybody who is interested, if you visit our website, there is links on there for gofan.com, I believe, where you can go and actually purchase a ticket. They're relatively inexpensive, and it really is a fun night to get out and go and see some of our athletes, because they really do amazing things. So I encourage you that if you have a free night on the schedule, go ahead and check out the link on the website. And thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you again for the students and the staff that helped put together tonight's little beginning for our evening. That was awesome. And congratulations to all of our athletes, especially the football team who should have got a bye and did not get a bye. But I've never seen a one seed not get a bye before. But we appreciate all their hard work and the great wins, and keep on going.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson?
I echo the sentiments of all my colleagues. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Dr. Koifman?
To Smith Clove, nice place. And kiddos were great. Singing always brings a smile to my face. Congratulations to the award recipients. Appreciate Dr. Norman and the cabinet for the informative presentation. Our hearts, of course, go out to the Greenwood Lake and the fire department battling the terrible fire. I wish everybody happy Thanksgiving and good holiday seasons.
Thank you. Dylan?
The presentation at the beginning by those students was absolutely incredible. My thoughts and prayers go out to all those affected by the fires recently, and to the first responder who lost his life. Congratulations to all our athletes. You guys have been doing a phenomenal job. And happy Thanksgiving. Have a great night.
Thank you. Dr. Norman?
So much you was said and many were acknowledged tonight, so I'll try and just kind of brief by exception. I do think it's important that I would be remiss if I didn't even mention the actual name of this gentleman. So on behalf of the school district, we do share our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Greenwood Lake Forest Ranger volunteer Daniel Vasquez, who was killed while battling the wildfires. Our thoughts and prayers are with them at this sad time. I also want to acknowledge and thank all of our brave first responders who've worked tirelessly to contain the fires and keep our communities safe. The district's Attitude of Gratitude initiative is underway throughout the month of October. We'll be featuring messages from members of our school community recognizing the individuals who make a difference in their lives each and every day. Make sure you check it out on the district website and social media accounts for these heartwarming stories. In addition, I want to acknowledge the Human Resources Department for its Crusader Causes for Applause campaign that celebrates our hardworking staff members. These features are also posted to our district site and social media. Please check that out. We've talked about our varsity football team. They will be competing this Friday, and of course, I will be there to cheer them on. And we did advocate for them to get that bye, so I do concur and agree with you with that, but unfortunately, wasn't successful, but they won anyway. So I want to thank our students and staff who took the time to acknowledge Veterans Day, and me personally as a veteran. I received handmade cards and messages from students from several buildings. I had the opportunity to present to North Main second graders, participated in a ceremony at Central Valley with fourth grade students, and spent time visiting the Smith Clove students. So these small acts of kindness mean so much to me, my wife, and I'm certainly grateful. Thank you. Dr. Hassler mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. The High School Drama Club will present the Three Musketeers this upcoming weekend. November 15th and 16th in the high school auditorium. Tickets can be purchased in advance online at the door, so don't miss out on our talented students. Just a reminder, schools will be closed on Wednesday, November 27th through Friday, November 29th for Thanksgiving break. We wish all members of our school family a wonderful Thanksgiving and are grateful for our many blessings. This concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Ciriello?
Thank you. I want to thank Smith Clove. That was just fantastic at the beginning of the evening. Makes the evening that much greater. I also want to thank President Tauber for reestablishing these visits to the schools. I think it really gives us a perspective. I think these were done before I joined the board and pre-COVID, and it really gives us a sense of community, and we also get to find out where some of the buildings are if we're not a visitation committee. The 3 National Merit Scholars, congratulations, 1.3 million if I recall. And we have 3 in this district, so that's fantastic. And I want to thank you for the goals update. The 3 Musketeers, I am biased because I have a student in the show, but please get your tickets. I hear it's going to be a fantastic event.
A musketeer, right?
He is a musketeer, yes. And I just want to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and fun-filled Thanksgiving with whatever way you celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Everybody said everything that's in my thoughts. I do want to give a special acknowledgement to Smith Clove. Thank you for your hospitality. And like Mr. Ciriello said, I think it's great that we're in the schools and seeing where our students and staff are doing what they do best every day. So thank you. And a special thanks to Mrs. Adler, Ms. Ford, and Ms. Garcia for the adorable Pledge of Allegiance and song. And our hearts are with Greenwood Lake. You know, we're here for anything that is needed. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for the presentations, and congratulations to new staff, retiring staff, and have a good night. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
Into working session.
Into working session. Motion to
Motion.
adjourn. Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.